on the waterfront, around the NHL, up, down, round and round, we are going over to ratings.org. Actually, no, it's not ratings.org, it's actually r.org. This is a brand new website that I am not familiar with, but they got NHL insider Marco D'Amico writing articles for them, and this piece is going to be linked in the description down below. It was posted yesterday and dives into some various news around the National Hockey League, Detroit center options, Laine and trade talks, Utah monitoring the market. Doesn't take a genius to read the title and the thumbnail, because today we are diving into where Marco D'Amico says Patrik Laine can get traded to. Man, that's a mouthful. We're going over Patrik Laine trade destinations courtesy of r.org, link in the description. Let's go out there and read what Marco D'Amico says here. The Montreal Canadiens were decimated by injuries at the start of the year, losing Laine, Gooley, Newhook, Doc, Evans, and more. During that time, they added some key depth, signing and extending Alexandre Texier and reuniting with pivot Philippe Deneau. But now that the Canadiens are healthy, there's a numbers game going on with their lineup. Prior to the NHL trade deadline, teams must respect the 23-man roster limit. After waiving Sammy Blais earlier this week, the Habs currently sit at 22 men on the roster, but Alex Newhook looks like he'll likely be back by the end of the month. With Patrik Laine seemingly ready to return to play, the Montreal Canadiens have tried to move him and are willing to retain 50% of his deal to make it happen. There was talk of the Canadiens possibly being willing to add a sweetener to move Laine on top of retaining on him. But sources confirmed there is very little appetite for that. Now, I can understand the Canadiens retaining on Laine. The guy's contract is $8.7 million a year. It expires at the end of this season. Retain 50%, who cares? Okay, maybe the Montreal Canadiens would care because they're actually a good team this year. Do they want to have $4-something million in dead cap space heading into this year's playoff run? That's a great question. But shelling out a sweetener to move Laine with salary retention, it does not seem like that is an option for the Montreal Canadiens. Colleague Eric Engels of Sportsnet has also reported it would be expected to see Laine moved before the Canadiens' next game on February 26th against the Islanders. If the 27-year-old Finn sees any post-Olympic action, we expect it to be for someone other than the Canadiens. The Calgary Flames have just run into a lot of money with key veteran Jonathan Huberdeau out for the rest of the season, as he is set to undergo hip surgery. The Carolina Hurricanes have significant cap space and have two of Laine's best friends, Sebastian Aho and Nikolai Ehlers, on the roster. While teams like LA and Seattle are looking to add more firepower for a playoff run, and they lack true snipers on the wing. The fact that Utah, Seattle, and the Blue Jackets are firmly in their respective playoff races will significantly hamper the already razor-thin rental market. Names like Nick Schmaltz, Jordan Eberle, Boone Jenner, Charlie Coyle, and Jared McCann would be removed from the conversation should these teams continue winning, which would play in Montreal's favor. Laine would be one of the few legitimate offensive rentals remaining on the board, and the expectation is he will be traded prior to Canadiens' return home on February 26th. So there's a number of things that we can dive into from this excerpt here. Firstly, it's the idea that Laine is going to be moved before Feb 26th, the Canadiens' very next game. Eric Engels and Marco D'Amico collaborating and writing the same thing, that yeah, Patrik Laine's next game of NHL action will not be with Montreal. That, of course, is disheartening. We do recognize the fact that Laine, his partner, they like Montreal. They liked what the Habs and the fan base was able to give to them, the way Habs fans embraced Patrik Laine last year. 33 points, 52 games played, and 20 goals. He was a monster when he was on, but he just wasn't on as much as he probably hoped he would have been. But still, he was a big part as to why the Canadiens even made the 2025 Stanley Cup Playoffs. Laine and his goals, his power play production, it was awesome. Unfortunately, The Canadiens are beyond a point where Patrik Laine is actually useful to what this team brings. They were able to do as well as they did this season without the guy. He only played 5 games this year, and he had 1 point. He is only 3 years removed from being a point-per-game guy with Columbus, but that's the thing. 3 years is honestly not a super short amount of time, and with Laine's injuries piling up at 27 years old, there very much is a desperation, I would say, for him to be able to revive his career and to be a player worth giving some extra money to next year and beyond. He's making $8.7 million right now. His next contract is not going to be anywhere near that. But there could be some sort of an appetite from these NHL teams if they want to take a chance on a guy who can be a top goal scorer. We had already spoken about the Calgary Flames. Maybe there's an opportunity for Laine to try something out, do what he could do with this Flames team. They're not all too great. They could use some extra goal support. Carolina and Laine seems like a very interesting fit. They do have his friends, but I don't know if Laine plays the kind of way that Rod Brind'Amour would be comfortable coaching. I don't think that he has a specific set of skills that Carolina players seem to tend to have. Pace, tenacity, just a willingness to go into battles. I don't know if Laine is necessarily that guy. We know that if Laine has the puck in his own zone and he decides to just charge up with it, he can do some pretty good things. He can be an end-to-end rush superstar. But that's not what he was in Montreal. And the most recent sample of play that he had with Montreal, that's all we got to go off of when trying to evaluate what Laine is today. He didn't make the Olympic team, of course, so he is not an option there either. An NHL team is just going to have to take a swing and see what Laine can do. I don't know if Carolina really wants to be that team. Then you have other teams like LA and Seattle. Now, Seattle, you want to talk about they lack snipers? Well, hey, they got Jared McCann, he's a pretty good one, but they do lack snipers on the wing. Eli Tolvanen is good, but there can be some extra added goal support on the winger positions there. LA, you can say similar things. They just got Panarin, so maybe there isn't really an appetite to grab Laine too, but the LA Kings, we already made a video about them potentially adding Matthews or McDavid in 2028's free agency period. Patrik Laine would be a very nice shortstop if you wanted to try to expand on what you've got right now. If you take a look at the NHL standings, those LA Kings are doing pretty all right. They're just outside the playoffs looking in. They have themselves a brand new shiny toy with Panarin, so they'll probably have a pretty good chance at catching one of Seattle or Anaheim. Seattle, of course, they are in the mix. Calgary, absolutely not. And then Carolina is one of the best teams in the National Hockey League with 78 points. So could Patrik Laine find himself going from Montreal to one of these other teams, a playoff team, a team that's trying to actually boost their favor this year? And could Laine be a prime contributor in helping that happen? You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This article on r.org by Marco D'Amico will be listed in the description. There are a number of other things in it that I think are interesting. We can talk about Detroit center options. We can talk about Utah, but I wanted to focus on Patrik Laine. Of course, Marco D'Amico is a Montreal guy, so there is a lot of ammo there from this beat. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Patrik Laine, LA, Carolina, Seattle, Calgary, yay or nay. And bye.